The Xenobiological Research Station, Kepler's promise hung in the dead space between stars, a monument to species who had learned to fear humanity long before they ever met them. Elsa pressed her six-fingered hand against the observation port, watching the distant flicker of the warp gate. Her iridescent skin rippled with anxiety, shifting through shades of deep purple, a Thetan's telltale sign of distress. In 73 cycles of existence, she had dedicated her life to one purpose: documenting the most dangerous species in the known galaxy. Humans. The files were extensive. 17 different first contact scenarios, each ending in conflict. Species who had encountered humanity spoke of their relentless expansion, their disturbing adaptability, their predatory eyes that faced forward like the apex hunters of 1,000 worlds. They were Death Worlders, survivors of a planet so hostile that it had forged them into something terrifying. Dr. Elsa, her assistant Crix chittered through his translator, his insectoid mandibles clicking nervously. The human delegation transport just cleared the outer markers. Her skin flashed pale yellow, fear. "How many?" she asked, her voice steady despite the chromatic betrayal of her emotions. "Only 2, a diplomatic envoy named Verkin." Crix paused, consulting his data pad. "His offspring." "His offspring?" Elsa's skin darkened to confused gray. "They're bringing a juvenile to a first contact research station." This violated every protocol she understood. Every species protected their young, kept them far from potential threats. What kind of predator brought their child to a meeting with those who feared them? The docking bay was sparse, clinical. Elsa had insisted on minimal personnel: herself, Crix, and 2 security officers whose weapons were set to lethal. She stood behind a reinforced transparent barrier, her prepared speech loaded onto her neural implant, ready to establish formal boundaries with these terrifying newcomers. The airlock cycled, atmosphere equalized. The door opened. Verk stepped through first. He was tall, built with the lean muscle of a persistence hunter. His eyes, those forward-facing predator's eyes, scanned the room with unsettling efficiency. He wore simple civilian clothes, not the military armor she'd expected. At his side walked a small human, barely reaching his hip, clutching a worn stuffed animal that vaguely resembled a Terran bear. The child couldn't have been more than 4 solar cycles old. "Dr. Elsa," Verk's voice was warm, accented with what her translator identified as Earth Standard English Southern Hemisphere variant. "I'm Ambassador Verk Chen. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." He glanced down. "This is my daughter, Maya." The child peered around her father's leg, brown eyes wide with curiosity rather than aggression. She waved one tiny hand. Elsa's prepared speech dissolved like morning frost. She'd studied human warfare, human expansion, human competition, but no file had prepared her for the reality of a human child hiding shyly behind her father. Elsa's skin flickered rapidly through colors she couldn't control. "I was told this was a diplomatic consultation regarding territorial boundaries." "It is," Verk said gently, "but Maya's school is on break and I'm a single parent. Where I go, she goes. I hope that's acceptable." The request was so ordinary, so reminiscent of a dozen other species who balanced careers and parenthood. Elsa found herself nodding. "The barrier can be lowered," she heard herself say, despite Crix's alarmed chirp. As the transparent wall descended, Verk approached slowly, matching his pace to his daughter's small steps. Maya clutched her father's hand, her other arm wrapped around her stuffed companion. "Your species has a fearsome reputation, Ambassador," Elsa said, forcing herself to meet those predator eyes. "Every record we have speaks of human aggression, territorial expansion, conflict." Verk's expression shifted to something sad. "I know, that's why I'm here, to show you what those files leave out." He knelt beside Maya, murmuring something in a language too soft for the translator. The child nodded, though she pressed closer to him. Maya is afraid, Verk explained, standing. This is her first time meeting non-humans. To her, you look as alien and frightening as we apparently look to you. Elsa's skin rippled with surprise. The human child, offspring of the galaxy's most feared species, was afraid of her. The files you've read, Verk continued, they're not wrong. Humans have fought wars, we've made mistakes. Earth was a harsh mother and she taught us to survive by any means necessary, but she also taught us something else. He gestured to Maya. She taught us to protect, to nurture, to love so fiercely that we'd burn the stars themselves for our children. That sounds like a threat, Crix whispered. It's a promise, Verk corrected gently. We're dangerous, yes, but only to those who threaten what we love. We're not conquerors seeking dominion. We're parents trying to build a galaxy where our children can grow up in peace. Maya tugged her father's hand, whispering urgently. Verk listened, then looked apologetically at Elsa. She needs to use the bathroom. Is there a facility nearby? The mundane request in the midst of this momentous first contact was so absurd that Elsa felt something crack in her carefully maintained fear. She directed them to the station's facilities, watching as the great human predator patiently guided his small daughter down the corridor. When they returned, Maya seemed slightly braver. She approached Elsa directly, craning her neck to look up at the tall Thessian. "You're pretty," the child announced, "like a rainbow." Elsa's skin burst into surprised pink. No one had ever called her chromatic displays pretty. Among her people, they were considered embarrassingly transparent. "Thank you," Elsa managed. Your toy is also nice." Maya beamed, holding up the stuffed bear. "His name is Captain Fuzzy. He's been to 3 planets." Verk watched with a small smile. "Maya, Dr. Elsa is very busy. Maybe we shouldn't." "It's fine," Elsa interrupted, surprising herself. She knelt, bringing herself closer to the child's level. "Captain Fuzzy is a very distinguished traveler." For the next few minutes, Elsa learned about Captain Fuzzy's adventures, narrated with the serious intensity only a 4-year-old could muster. The bear had fought space pirates, a cardboard box, explored alien jungles, a park, and once rescued a princess, Maya herself, from a dragon, her father, during playtime. Verk's communicator chimed. He checked it, frowning. "I need to take this call, it's the council. It'll just be a minute." He stepped away, speaking quietly into his device. Maya continued her story about Captain Fuzzy, but Elsa noticed the child swaying slightly, exhaustion evident. "Are you tired, small one?" Elsa asked. Maya nodded, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy and me left really early. I didn't sleep much." Before Elsa could respond, the child swayed more dramatically. On instinct, pure, unbidden instinct, Elsa reached out and caught her. Maya, with the trusting nature of an exhausted child, simply curled into Elsa's arms, tucking her head against the Thessian's shoulder. Within moments, she was asleep, her warm breath soft against Elsa's iridescent skin. Elsa froze. In her arms was the offspring of humanity, a species she had feared for decades. A predator's child, vulnerable and small, sleeping trustingly against her chest. The child's heartbeat, faster than a Thessian's, the pulse of a high-metabolism species, thumped steadily against Elsa's own. Verk returned, stopping short when he saw his daughter. The fear that Elsa expected, the predator's rage at seeing his young in another's grasp, never came. Instead, his expression softened with something like gratitude. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, approaching slowly so as not to wake Maya. "The call took longer than expected." She fell asleep," Elsa whispered, still frozen. "She trusts you," Verk said simply. "Children are excellent judges of character. They know who means them harm." He reached out, not to snatch his child away, but to gently brush a strand of hair from Maya's face. The gesture was unbearably tender. "May I?" he asked, preparing to take Maya back. Elsa looked down at the sleeping child, at the small human who had somehow bypassed 73 cycles of fear in less than an hour. At this tiny ambassador who had shown her what no file could convey. Humans weren't monsters. They were people. Fierce, yes. Protective, absolutely. But also capable of trust, of gentleness, of putting their most precious treasure in the arms of a stranger. "Dr. Elsa," Verk said softly, "I know humans frighten you. We frighten a lot of species, but I want you to understand something." He met her eyes and she saw no threat there, only earnest hope. "Every war we've fought, every boundary we've defended, every ship we've armed, it's all been for this. For moments when our children can sleep peacefully, trusting that the universe is a safe place." He carefully took Maya into his own arms, the child barely stirring. "We're not your enemies," Verk continued. "We're just parents like you have on your world. We're workers, dreamers, artists, scientists. We're people who want what everyone wants, a chance for our children to grow up in a better galaxy than we inherited." Elsa's skin cycled through a dozen colors before settling on thoughtful blue. "Ambassador, I've spent most of my life afraid of your species. Every file, every report painted you as existential threats." "And now?" Verk asked. She looked at Maya, peaceful in her father's arms, then at Verk himself, a father who had brought his most vulnerable treasure to prove his species' peaceful intent. "Now," Elsa said slowly, "I think I need to write a very different kind of report." 3 months later, the Galactic Council received Dr. Elsa's comprehensive study. It included all the standard data: human military capabilities, expansion patterns, resource consumption. But it also included something unprecedented: recordings of a human child's laughter, descriptions of parental bonds, documentation of human art and music and stories. The final line of her report became famous across a dozen systems. "We feared humans because we saw only their capacity for destruction. But a species should be judged not by what they can destroy, but by what they choose to protect. Humans are dangerous, yes, but only to those who threaten their young, their families, their future. They are not our enemies. They are our mirror, showing us that the fiercest warriors can also be the gentlest parents. Perhaps that is what truly frightens us, seeing our own capacity for both violence and love reflected in their forward-facing eyes." Elsa kept one image on her personal terminal, a photo from that day, showing a human child asleep in Theshan arms and a father watching with tired, grateful eyes. It reminded her that fear could be overcome, one small, trusting heartbeat at a time.